Today on the chopping block is Ford Motor Company. It's a favorite American brand and it's very competitive in the car business. So I'm gonna talk about it. I'm gonna take a look at some charts, go through some bars, talk about the company a little bit, valuation, where the finances stand, maybe even look at some news articles, and then I will decide whether I think it's a buy or a buying opportunity at this point or not. I do these company reviews on the weekends, mainly on Saturday and Sunday, whenever the market is not open. During market open, I usually review my account. I have a public account that I share daily the performance of, and then do also little tiny educational videos about how to do what in your brokerage account. So without further ado, first I'm going to jump on the Yahoo Finance because I want you to see a more long-term chart of Ford Motor Company. You can see that about the average price of Ford has been around $10 ever since like 1984. And I don't think that trend is going to necessarily change. I think they have a history of returning capital to shareholders. A lot of people own Ford for the dividend, and so I expect that to continue. I don't think they're going to prioritize share price over that. And there's a number of factors why I think this share price has a cap on it. And you'll see why when we get into the numbers. So I like to use stockanalysis.com. It's a favorite site of mine to look at numbers. It puts everything nice and neatly for me. So first thing I want to take a look at is the financials. So number one is the revenue. It looks like the revenue has been kind of peaked out in 2018 and then fell a little in 2019. It was going to stay steady, but obviously 2020 was a tough year for everyone. And 2021 is trying to stage a comeback. To get a better look though, I like to look at the quarterly revenue figures. And as you can see on the graph here, they have been somewhat flat to down. So not so much of a resurrection that perhaps the media is portraying when it comes to the numbers. They're not overwhelmingly positive. Next figure I like to look at is the operating income. So you can see that it's almost flat. I mean, they're almost making no money. They have had positive quarters in the last three, it appears. And the first one there 4 quarters ago is flat, and then another positive, and then a few negative ones in 2020. However, they're not making that much money relative to their obligations, and you'll see what I mean in a second. Shares outstanding, it looks like they're about flat, unchanged. Sometimes they buy back shares to return capital to shareholders. Sometimes they sell if they need to meet some financial obligations. So that's fine. It's about flat. But what I want to take a look at really is when we go to the statistics, you'll see that the enterprise value of Ford is 106 billion compared to its market cap of 44.35 billion. That suggests that they have about $60 billion in debt. Now, you saw how much they made in the last quarter, right? Which is 1.34 billion. And they owe 61 billion. So it could take like 10 years to pay off that debt back. It's going to be quite, a long process, 10 years or more. So looking at some of the ratios, it looks like their price to earnings is almost 4, and their EV to earnings is a little bit over 9. The payout ratio for the dividend currently stands at 7%, which is very good. But if you look at the dividend history, they've kind of lowered their dividend, right? It looks like they paid out a dividend in 2020 in January for 15 cents, and then a 10-cent dividend all the way in November 2021. So they suspended their dividend for a while, and now they're starting to give out a 10-cent dividend again. starting January and now in April 25th this year. So it looks like they suspended dividend, but it is a very low dividend compared to the money that they're earning. However, this debt is, really hanging over the company. Let's take a look at the balance sheet. So cash equivalents 82 billion. Total asset 109. Total liabilities 257. So if we go to current debt, 49 billion. Total debt 138. Yeah, it's quite a bit. It's probably better to look at these numbers here actually. The balance sheet. Okay, so net cash is negative 61 billion, so they owe 61 billion dollars. That's quite a bit. They do have a lot of capital though to meet like their any kind of short-term obligations and operational requirements. So I'm not really like, I don't think it's a poorly run company or anything like that. And they did suspend a dividend for a good reason, in order to make sure that they stay alive, and then taking some precautions there. But it just seems like they're just not making enough money, and with that with that debt hanging over on their neck for the foreseeable future, they're gonna have a really tough time like growing themselves out of it. Ford does portray themselves like as a moving forward like growth kind of company, but the numbers just don't actually support that narrative, right? So again, I'm just gonna point out to the revenue figures. These are not revenue figures of a growth company. I know they have some really cool cars, like the Mach-E and the Lightning and whatnot, and they're really capturing the imagination of the consumer. But the numbers suggest that they're gonna have a really tough time, a really big hole to dig out over a long period of time. And I'm gonna circle back to my original opinion when I was talking about the long-term chart here, and how the average price of the share was about $10. I can see that happening for the next 10 years or more, because of the debt and just their inability to grow really and to penetrate the market any further. This stock dropped all the way down to like $2 in December 1st, 2008. And considering today's economic situation, and they even mentioned that inflation is eating into their profits a little bit because they have to pay more for things like labor, materials, etc. So they're not actually making as much profit anymore. They're kind of all these costs are eating into their profit. And considering all that, considering the macro environment, considering the lower demand for vehicles now, harder financing, higher interest rates, less free money, right? So all this environment is gonna just really hit their sales, and they would have to do something truly revolutionary to try to like get an edge on this market, and being in competition in EVs is not that, right? It's just being very competitive, but not actually taking a different angle on the industry. So I'm a bit worried about Ford's ability to grow, but I'm not worried about them running out of business. I think they're gonna continue to stay where they're at, probably like around the $10 a share for the next 5-10 years. But I do think they might drop into below $5 in the next coming year or two because of the issues that they're dealing with. So overall, I like the company. I wouldn't buy it at the moment. Maybe if you were patient enough, you could try to place some kind of options on it. But I don't think the current situation is a buy, even though I think it's a good company. Mainly because of the debt. I don't even know how they racked up so much debt. They must have been operating in debt for a very long time. I don't follow, Ford normally, so I don't know how those debt figures evolved over time, but it looks like they've accumulated quite a bit. And it's one of the things that I think is holding him back, that obligation. All right. I think I'm gonna call it right here. If you're interested in these videos, or you want me to do a company overview of your choice, you can just leave it in the comments below. I'll dig up some information. I'll tell you what I think about the company. I'll look at their finances, and I'll let you know if I would invest in it or not. All right, I'm gonna end it right here. Yeah, let me know if you own Ford and what you think about it. Peace out.